The final tournament on the ATP Tour is in Acapulco. I have already done videos covering my predictions for the tournament in Dubai, as well as the tournament in Santiago. But we also have this one in Acapulco, where a lot of big players will be playing. As said, I've done those other predictions video. If you are interested in watching those, go do that. But this is my predictions for the, and hang with me here, the Abierto Mexicano Telcel Presentado por HSBC Open. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm sorry for mispronouncing that. Now, looking at the left side of the draw, we have got Alexander Zverev up against Daniel Altmaier. And Altmaier, who had a bit of success in the start of the year on the hard courts, then played very, very poorly on the clay. Now returning to hard courts in Acapulco and facing Alexander Zverev. I think this is an evil draw for Altmaier, and I think that Zverev will win in straight sets against Altmaier. And speaking of evil draws, this is definitely not an evil draw for Kecmanovic, who is bang out of form. He has been so bad in the last couple of tournaments he's played, but he is facing Diego Schwartzman, who has also been on the clay, but now has not had success on his favorite surface, now coming back to hard courts, and I think he'll be even worse there. With that said, though, Kecmanovic is also so bang out of form. I do think Schwartzman will win one set, but he will still lose the match, and I think Kecmanovic will profit of facing someone so out of form as Schwartzman, and I think he'll win in 3 sets. We then have Nuno Borges up against Nishioka. Nishioka has come in as a lucky loser. He was in the qualifying draw, but lost out to Michael Mmoh. But Nishioka comes in as a lucky loser, and I think he loses again. I really don't have an agenda against Nishioka. I have nothing against the man. I just don't think he's very impressive. And I think he will lose to Nuno Borges, who has had a decent year so far. We then have the third meeting of the year between Jack Draper and Tommy Paul. Now, so far, I have predicted the correct winner both times. And I had Draper to win in Adelaide, and I had Paul to beat him at the Australian Open, was it? This time, I'm going for Paul win as well. I think Draper played an entertaining match against Kokkinakis. I didn't watch it, but as far as I've heard, a very entertaining match against Kokkinakis. But the fact of the matter is he lost to Kokkinakis in the first round. And Kokkinakis isn't in the best possible form right now. Therefore, I do think it will be a tight match, but I think Paul will win in 3 sets. We then have Alex de Minaur against Taro Daniel. Now, de Minaur will, of course, both be trying to defend his title from last year, as well as trying to do much better than he did in Los Cabos, where he lost to Alex Michelsen. And I think de Minaur will get off to a good start. I think he will win in straight sets against Taro Daniel. We then have another player who is coming back from the clay tournaments in Sebastian Ofner, who faces Escobedo. Now, I think Sebastian Ofner is out of form, or he's not playing well, at least. He's not in a winning form. And you have Escobedo, who is playing at home. He'll probably have the crowd behind him. I think Escobedo wins this in 3 sets. We then have Felix Auger-Aliassime up against Flavio Cobolli. Now, Cobolli just seems very wasteful when I watch him. I don't think he plays very well. He's going very, very big, and that I can enjoy. But he's just so he lacks precision in his shots, and I think his shot selection can be totally off at times. He was absolutely humiliated by Nishioka last week, and I think he will lose once again, this time to Felix Auger-Aliassime in straight sets. And Felix will then face either Roman Safiullin or Stefanos Tsitsipas. I'm already feeling a bit dumb for this prediction because Roman Safiullin hasn't been playing well, but neither has Tsitsipas really. So I'm sticking to my guns, but I'm also leaning a bit towards a Tsitsipas win. But my prediction is Safiullin will beat Tsitsipas in 3 sets. And if he does beat Tsitsipas, I think he'll gain a bit of momentum. And let's just keep on going with the Safiullin momentum, if he does beat Tsitsipas, I actually think he'll beat Auger-Aliassime as well, and I think he'll do that in 3 sets as well. To then face, and I know we're reversing the order a bit here, to then face Alex de Minaur, because I do think de Minaur will face and beat Escobedo in the second round. I think he'll do so in straight sets. We then have Nuno Borges up against Tommy Paul, and this is a match where I feel like if Paul beats Draper, he definitely beats Nuno Borges as well. Borges is good, but I don't think he can beat the top players as of right now. I do know he beat Dimitrov at the Australian Open, but I don't feel like that's something that's going to keep happening. And I think Paul will then face Alexander Zverev, because I think Zverev will quite easily beat Kecmanovic. As out of form as Kecmanovic is right now, I don't think he's much of a matchup for Zverev. Which then sets up 2 quarterfinals on this side of the draw, which is Alexander Zverev up against Tommy Paul and Alex de Minaur up against Roman Safiullin. Now, I think we will see a 3-set match between Zverev and Paul, where I think Paul will actually pull through. Now, Zverev had a very disappointing loss to Jordan Thompson last week in Los Cabos. I just think Paul will have what it takes to beat Zverev in 3 sets. I think Zverev can tense up a bit when he gets further into tournaments, at least as of late. I think Paul will capitalize on that and win in 3 sets. And between de Minaur and Safiullin, I think this is where the run ends for Safiullin. I do think de Minaur will be back to his winning ways, just as he was in Rotterdam, and I think he will win in straight sets to set up a semifinal between Tommy Paul and de Minaur. And in that semifinal, I think de Minaur wins. This is a rematch of last year's final in Acapulco, and I think once again de Minaur will win, and I think he'll do so in 3 sets to go to his 2nd consecutive final in Acapulco. Now, before telling you whether or not I think that de Minaur will successfully defend his title in Acapulco, we're jumping to the other side of the draw, where the first matchup is Casper Ruud against Christopher Eubanks. Now, Eubanks has not had a lot of success this year, and Ruud is coming off a great week in Los Cabos. I know he didn't win the title as I thought he would, but he did go all the way to the final and was just beaten on the day by an exceptional Jordan Thompson. I think Ruud will get back to winning, and I think he will beat Eubanks in straight sets. To then face either Pacheco Mendes or Dusan Lajovic. Now, last week I had a bit of a fairy tale run for Pacheco Mendes as he was playing at home. He is playing at home this week as well, and this time he is facing Dusan Lajovic, who, just as I mentioned with a couple of other players, is coming straight from the clay tournaments, which I think that transition will be tougher on Dusan Lajovic. He is better on clay than he is on hard courts, and maybe I am just dying on a hill here, but I am saying once again, Pacheco Mendes wins this first round match, and I think he'll do so in 3 sets. We then have Dan Evans up against Ben Shelton. Now, Dan Evans is someone who hasn't looked very good. I obviously had him to win in Delray Beach. That ended up being a dreadful prediction, as he was beaten comfortably by Jordan Thompson. And this week, I don't think he'll find a lot of success coming up against Ben Shelton. I think Ben Shelton will be better in these smaller tournaments than he was last year. And I think he will, at the very least, win this first round match against Evans in straight sets. And Shelton will then face either Matteo Arnaldi or Taylor Fritz. Now, Taylor Fritz is of course still fresh off winning in Delray Beach, and I think he'll continue his great form. He was brilliant in Delray Beach, and I think he beats Matteo Arnaldi here in Acapulco as well. We then have Frances Tiafoe up against Max Purcell. Now, I find it difficult talking about Tiafoe because I really, really like the guy. He seems so cool, so nice, but he's so frustrating to watch at the moment. He was terrible against Tommy Paul in Delray Beach, but you still know what's in there. You still know what he can do. And Max Purcell hasn't had a lot of success this year either. So I think Tiafoe will win in straight sets, and if he does, he has a very favorable draw, as he will face either Atmain or Dominic Kopfer in the second round. This is a matchup where I think Atmain coming out of the qualifying, I don't think the qualifying for Acapulco was particularly strong. I think Kopfer will just edge it over Atmain, winning in straight sets. And we then have the newly crowned Los Cabos champion, Jordan Thompson coming up against Kovacevic. And Jordan Thompson was outstanding in that final in Los Cabos. And I think he wins here again, continues his great form, to then face Michael Mmoh or Holger Rune. Now, tomorrow I am planning on posting a recap video of what happened last week, where I will talk much more about Holger Rune, or at least mention him because he didn't play last week. But so big news surrounding the re-teaming up of Patrick Mouratoglou and Holger Rune. So I'll speak much more about those tomorrow. I think it's a weird appointment, but the fact of the matter is Holger Rune has had his best success with Mouratoglou at the helm. And I'm a big soccer fan, or football fan, and we have this thing called a new manager bounce, that where a team tends to have a purple patch when they hire a new manager. And Holger Rune has a bit of the same. When he rehired Mouratoglou last year before Rome, he went to the final in Rome. When he hired Boris Becker, he went and played a great week in Basel. When he hired Kenneth Carlson, he went to the final in Brisbane. So I think this could have a very positive effect, at least to begin with, for Holger. And I think he will at least beat Michael Mmoh to go to the round of 16. Now, looking at that round of 16, the first matchup is Casper Ruud against Pacheco Mendes. And this is where I think Pacheco Mendes will go out. He might lose in the first round. I think he'll go here, and I think he'll lose in straight sets to Casper Ruud. We then have an absolute blockbuster of a match with Ben Shelton and Taylor Fritz. And as I said, Fritz is in great form right now. And I think he'll beat Shelton. I think he'll do so in 3 sets. I still think Shelton will go further in many tournaments this year than he did last year. But I don't think that he will win this second round match because it's a tough draw facing the Delray Beach champion. And I think Fritz will win. And we then have Tiafoe against Dominic Kopfer. Now, as I said, this is a good draw for Tiafoe. And I think he will beat Kopfer in straight sets. Even though my thoughts right now on Tiafoe aren't very positive, I still think he has what it takes to beat Kopfer. We then have Jordan Thompson against Holger Rune. And as brilliant as Thompson was, and speaking of things that I'll talk about in that video tomorrow, speak a lot more about Jordan Thompson, as good as he was in that, especially the final against Casper Ruud, I have a good feeling about Holger Rune this week. I think that, I just think Mouratoglou and the presence of a good coach will have a positive effect on him, at least this week. And I think he'll beat Thompson in straight sets, which then sets up 2 quarterfinals where at least the first one will be a blockbuster as well. Casper Ruud against Taylor Fritz, the finalist from Los Cabos against the champion from Delray Beach. I think Fritz wins. I think Fritz is in such great form. He's been so good this year, ever since his match against Diaz Acosta. And looking at what Diaz Acosta has done since that Australian Open match, you can understand why that was difficult for Fritz. But since that match, he's been so good, Taylor Fritz. And I think he'll beat Casper Ruud in 3 sets. The other quarterfinal match is Frances Tiafoe against Holger Rune. Now, if you haven't noticed so far this video, I don't think Tiafoe is playing very well at the moment, and I think this will be a very good week for Holger Rune. So I think Holger Rune will do just like Paul did in Delray Beach. He'll beat Tiafoe in straight sets. Which sets up the third Taylor Fritz blockbuster match of the week. Taylor Fritz against Holger Rune. Now, I have just watched a couple of training videos where Fritz commented on the video saying that he got the ass kicking of a lifetime in this practice session. Which I shouldn't read too much into a practice session, but I am from Denmark. I'm rooting for Holger Rune, so I want to see him do well. So I think he'll beat Fritz. I just think he'll be great this week. And he will set up a final that is a rematch of last year's semi-final between Alex de Minaur and Holger Rune. And speaking of that semi-final, de Minaur won against Holger Rune last year. But de Minaur is much better now. Which makes it make no sense why I'm saying Holger Rune wins this title. I think Holger Rune will beat Alex de Minaur in 3 sets and do a reverse of what happened last year in Acapulco. And I think it will be a very watchable, very entertaining match where Holger Rune will come out on top. If he'll continue this form, I don't know. I don't even know if he will get on this winning form. But that is my prediction. Tell me down below if you agree with me, and if you have liked the video, consider clicking the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel if you like tennis predictions. Tell me who you think will win in Acapulco. Do you think de Minaur will defend his title? Do you think Fritz will continue his winning form? Do you even think maybe Jordan Thompson will continue his winning form? Tell me what you think down below, and thank you so much for watching this video. Have a very nice day.